The story begins with a great catastrophe, the terrifying immortal king of the undead. The immortal king declares that the Knight of Light is indeed worthy of being called his rival. In response, the Knight of Light acknowledges the immortal king as the continent's nightmare, but states that as long as the power of light is with them, they will not lose. They then engage in a fierce battle. Watching the scene unfold, the protagonist takes a sip of his drink and comments, "The righteous Knight of Light. Aren't they fighting a bit too theatrically after all? It's just a play." He then remarks that a jobless bum is watching from his room and reflects, "How did it come to this? They're all me, going back to the past." A man from the investigations department introduces himself as being from the Special Investigations Department of the Ability Management Bureau. He asks the protagonist if he is Han Seonghyeon. Han confirms, saying that as the man can see, he is. The man acknowledges this and confirms his identity, then informs Han that if he awakens any abilities, he must report them to the Ability Management Bureau. As he leaves, he says, "Have a nice day." Han remains silent, thinking to himself that his first interaction with an outsider in half a year is over, meaning he won't need to open his front door for another 6 months. He notices that the food he had stored has expired and reflects that it has been 2 years since he last went outside. He's a recluse, some might call him pathetic or weak-willed, but in his mind, he's just a victim of this messed up world. The news reporter announces breaking news: firefighters are battling a blaze at a shopping complex. The arsonist appears to be an awakened who committed a random crime before being transported to another world. Han reflects on the phenomenon of awakening. One day, humanity began randomly awakening mysterious powers known as abilities. Once someone awakens their ability, they are forcibly transported to another world within 24 hours. If they meet certain conditions, they can return to Earth, but only a tiny fraction of people actually manage to survive and come back. In despair, some of the awakened began committing reckless last-ditch crimes right before being transported. 2 years ago, Han lost his family and his leg to one of those crimes. Perhaps he even lost the courage to ever stand again. Han attempts weightlifting exercises, but his legs fail to support him. Frustrated, he asks himself why he's even bothering when it seems to have no effect. He calls himself pathetic. He wonders why he is paralyzed by fear at the mere thought of stepping outside his door. He believes that if he had more courage, things might have been different. If only he could escape this damn room and go anywhere at all. At that moment, the system activates and detects a dimensional inflection point connecting to the Asha system. Seeing the system, Han is shocked. The system then announces the awakening of a unique skill. Han, in shock, says that he's awakening like this. The system notifies him that his unique skill, Avatar, has awakened. The time until transfer to another world is 24 hours. Han says, "Why is this happening all of a sudden? It has to be a joke." The system notifies him that if he does not enter the transfer zone within the time limit, they will proceed with forced escort. Han screams as he runs, thinking about how they said it would take at least a year to return to Earth. Time in the other world moves 10 times slower than on Earth, meaning he has to survive 10 years there to make it back. He wonders if he can even survive. The system notifies him that there are 3 minutes remaining until the transfer. Trembling, Han readies himself with his equipment and stands before the transportation portal. As he is about to enter, doubts fill his mind. How can he survive in another world when he can't even step outside his own door? With no powers and no skills, it's impossible. Suddenly, a thought strikes him. Skills? If they mean skills, then he has abilities. Determined, he decides to check what kind of power he has. Han shouts and activates his avatar skill. A clone identical to him materializes before his eyes. Both Han and the clone are taken aback. Han, in disbelief, says, "It's me." Suddenly, a sharp pain pierces his head. Han thinks he sees 2 versions of himself and wonders if it's clone vision. As he turns back to look, he realizes he might be sharing his vision with the avatar. He comments that trying to move his body separately is making him dizzy, and that moving both at the same time feels impossible. At that moment, the system notifies him that there is 1 minute remaining until the transfer. Hearing the notification, Han glances at the system, which warns him that if he does not step into the transfer zone, a forced escort will be initiated. Frustrated, Han expresses that even with an avatar, it feels useless. He questions why he is stuck with such a worthless ability. He wishes someone could take his place and begs the avatar to go in instead. The avatar responds by looking at him, then steps into the teleportation zone. The system confirms, "Awakened 1 confirmed." Initiating transfer, Han prays for success. The system then announces that the transfer is beginning. As Han falls to the ground, he exclaims that it worked. He thinks the transfer zone recognizes the avatar as him. The system notifies him that the transfer to the Altera dimension has been completed. The clone appears in the Altera dimension and looks at its hands, puzzled. Han wonders why he is still there if he sent the avatar. The transfer only worked for him, not the avatar. The system informs him that he can return to Earth through the return option in the karma shop and collect karma during his adventure. Current karma 0. Suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his head. Han realizes that he isn't actually present, he's merely sharing his vision with the avatar. Feeling dizzy, he screams and cancels the summon. His vision returns to his room, but he suddenly feels nauseous. He rushes to the bathroom and vomits. Relieved, he thinks that at least he dodged the transfer crisis. He then summons the avatar back. Looking at it, he mutters that he's seriously screwed and wonders what he's supposed to do with this useless ability from now on. Suddenly, the system notifies him, congratulating him for achieving a great feat returning to Earth on his own without using the Karma Shop. He has earned a special reward, Achievement Unlocked Dimensional Transfer Gate. Now, once a day, he can move to a previously visited location through the transfer gate. Han is shocked at the sudden rewards. The system notifies him that his karma has greatly increased. He screams in shock at the system notifications, realizing that he has become the awakened one who returned to Earth in the shortest time ever. If you guys enjoy my recaps, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to watch till the end. The system notifies that Han currently owns 1,910,211,333 karma. He is shocked at the 1.9 million. Karma, thinking it's an incredible amount for simply unsummoning the avatar, feels like he has received 10 years worth of points all at once. Karma is awarded based on the impact one has in this other world, good deeds or bad deeds, killing or hard work, etc. The accumulated karma can be used to strengthen one's skills or return to Earth. Han wonders if this is an error and what will happen if they ask him to pay it back later. He tries to take it easy, reasoning that it's not like he messed up on purpose, so whatever. Han reminds himself that he's on Earth, so returning is meaningless. His eyes fall upon the enhanced status section in the Karma Shop, which notifies him that he can view the details. He wonders what is included in enhanced status. The system panel shows its status stamina, enhanced recovery power at 10,000. Surprised, Han contemplates enhancing his recovery power. He then selects the option to proceed with enhanced recovery and clicks on the system panel. Suddenly, a surge of power flows through his legs. Han realizes he can feel something in his legs. His injury is recovering. To him, this leg injury wasn't merely an inconvenience, it marked his farewell to his family and left him scarred and confined to his room. The system then notifies him that his recovery power has surpassed the standard level, and he has acquired a new skill, Super Recovery. This effect enhances his recovery power. That night, Han reflects while exercising on how he poured his karma points into curing his leg injury, which has now become ridiculously strong. However, he notes that he still has a lot of remaining karma and wonders where he should use it. His gaze falls upon the option to enhance his possessed skill for 300,000 karma points. Curious about enhancing his unique skill, he decides to use his karma points on it. Han contemplates what he will be able to do if he enhances his avatar skill. After a while, Han smirks as he looks at his clone. As expected, he thinks he looks manly. The Han clone responds, acknowledging that he has a great body himself and must exercise a bit. Han smiles, attributing the clone's appearance to diligent effort. He reflects that upon awakening his avatar skill, his consciousness split into two, allowing him to move freely. The system notifies him of a new skill he has obtained through enhancing his possessed skill's mind hub. This skill filters out stimuli and emotions, accepting only the information he desires. Han realizes that this means he will not only be free from dimensional sickness, but also won't feel pain even if his avatar gets hurt. Enthusiastically, Han thinks that he can now venture into the other world from the warm corner of his room. He imagines controlling his avatar as easily as playing a game. However, he quickly realizes this isn't the only change. There are now 3 of him. Han wonders if the number of avatars will increase as he grows stronger. Confused, he decides this won't do. They need to choose names for themselves. The 3 of them start thinking deeply. Han says he can't keep calling them avatar. One clone admits that he lacks confidence when it comes to naming things, while the other clone contemplates various names. Han notices the names on some products. One is labeled Han's Coffee and the other Heinz Ketchup. Han declares that he knows what to do from now on. He decides the first one will be Hans. The system notifies Hans of his profile. Common traits include Mind Hub and Super Recovery, while his individual trait is Mana Affinity. Special notes indicate that he is Han Seonghyeon's first avatar. Next, Han decides that the second avatar will be named Heinz. The system updates with Heinz's profile. Common traits also include Mind Hub and Super Recovery, but his individual trait is Durability. Special notes state that he is Han Seonghyeon's second avatar. Han contemplates the concepts of Mana Affinity and Durability and wonders why both avatars seem a bit crazy. He resolves that it's time to undertake the long-awaited main quest and reassures himself not to feel anxious at all. As Hans enters the teleportation portal, he exclaims, "Let's go to the other world." Han carries a year's worth of garbage with him. Hans then teleports to the other world. Han opens the door to his house and steps outside, greeted by the sun's rays. He thinks to himself that he doesn't feel anxious at all. The Mind Hub is working properly. Noticing Han, he concludes that Hans must have also arrived in the other world. At that moment, Hans arrives in the other world and says that it is already night. Han remarks that nothing is likely to emerge in this peaceful-looking forest. However, That's not the case. A monster is already lurking nearby, unbeknownst to him. Suddenly, a black panther appears, startling Han, who exclaims in shock at how it could have appeared so suddenly. The panther lunges at him, and Han quickly draws a knife from behind. He prepares to defend himself with the knife. The black panther bites the knife. Han says that it's so nasty. Han thinks to himself that, as he expected, he doesn't feel fear or pain in this place. For him, it's just like a game. Han then commands the system for a mana injection, causing the blade to shimmer with energy. He stabs the black panther, ending its life and managing to survive the encounter. Han reflects that maybe it's because he is still weak. The fight was extremely challenging. He realizes he would be in big trouble if he remained there and encountered another monster. Han notices a structure in the distance. After a bit of walking, he recognizes it as a village. Upon entering the village, an old man greets him as a traveler. He introduces himself as Malcolm, the village chief. The chief remarks that it's impressive for Han to have passed through a forest path teeming with monsters at such a late hour. Han chuckles, replying that he is covered in wounds because of it. He asks if he can stay in the village for just one night. The village chief agrees, stating that they should help each other out. Relieved, Han smiles and thanks him. The chief then comments that it's his first time seeing someone with Han's outfit and equipment, and inquires whether Han has come from far away. Han laughs, saying it all happened while he was gathering various things and wandering around. The village chief nods, expressing his gladness to see an outsider for the first time in a long while. He suggests they grab a drink at the village tavern. After enjoying a drink together, Han returns to his room. Lying on the bed, he remarks that they even provided him with an empty room. The more he observes it, the warmer his feelings for the village become. He wonders how long it has been since he last enjoyed time with other people. Yawning, Han comments that it was a fun day. As he drifts off to sleep, someone enters the room. He then comes back to Earth. Of course, it's the Mind Hub. Relaxing with a beer, Han declares it the best, especially while enjoying chicken after a shower during his travels in the other world. He feels a bit sorry for Heinz. He's busy with health training to enhance his durability skills since he doesn't know when he'll dispatch Heinz. It's good to prepare in advance. Han thinks it's nice that as much as his clones are working hard, he must learn more about what's happening in the world and what the other world is like. He resolves to play the role of the perfect commander-in-chief. Suddenly, Han feels something is off and is struck by an ominous sensation. At that moment, the system issues a warning: avatar dead. All traits and accumulated data of the avatar will be reset. Han's eyes widen in shock as he processes the notification, realizing that Hans has died. Han is shocked and exclaims that Hans was just in the village, but now he's dead. As expected, Han suspects it must be the old guy's doing. He wonders if something was mixed into his drink. Han regrets being too complacent in such an unfamiliar place. Suddenly, Han realizes that he's reconnected with his avatar. The village chief, looking at Han's corpse, comments that he thought Hans would be a useful guy, but he turned out to be completely ordinary. The man beside the chief agrees, saying he was right. As they observe Han's body, the village chief notes that since Hans had passed through the village's forest alone, he thought Hans might have some talent, but instead, he's just an elite skeleton. Han connects with Han's skeleton and is confused, thinking, what is this? At that moment, the system notifies him that the individual's race has been changed to undead and that he has obtained a special skill: decomposed heart. It displays Han's profile, showing his new race as undead elite skeleton with common traits like Mind Hub and super recovery, and individual traits such as mana affinity. Han, now pale-faced, wonders if he's truly undead. The system further notifies him that due to the effects of Mind Hub, his mind hasn't been corrupted. Han thinks, what the hell is this place, and where am I now? Suddenly, he notices something and turns to the side. He sees a couple of undead and, shocked, thinks, what the heck are these things? Han wonders if those bastards turned the entire village into undead. Just then, Jeffy enters the room and Han wonders who he is. Upon seeing Jeffy, Han thinks he's the same guy who was in the tavern yesterday. Jeffy, sighing, says how long he must be confined in this remote mountain area. Han wonders if the people he saw earlier are all black magicians. Jeffy notices something and looks at Han's side. Han wonders why the man is staring at him like that, and if he has noticed that he can move. Jeffy, pointing his finger elsewhere, says, why is this thing here too? No one is doing their job properly. He then orders, move over there. Relieved, Han thinks that even though his heart may already be rotten, he almost had a heart attack. Suddenly, Han senses something. He feels a power trying to move him forcefully. If he focused, he could ignore it, but he decides it's better to follow it for now. Jeffy mutters to himself, why does he always make me check on the undead? That old geezer is too meticulous. He then leaves the room, slamming the door behind him. Han thinks that the power felt extremely familiar. It's the same power controlling his undead body. He wonders if, thanks to his mana affinity trait, he's figured out how this power works. Han then speculates that he might even be able to control the other undead. 1 week later, in a storage room, Han diligently practices sitting upon piles of boxes in front of a skeleton. He releases a long breath with eyes covered in an aura, looking fiercely. His gaze falls upon the skeleton's body. Han intensely stares at the skeleton. The skeleton then slowly gets to its feet. Han thinks that he has finally been able to control the other undead. He thinks this is a bit too much, although it is extremely clumsy. Han thinks that moreover, he can can only move one undead. He wonders if this is the limit of an elite skeleton. Suddenly he notices noises. He looks down at his leg and a small rat bites him. Han swiftly catches the rat and internally thinks he has finally caught the little creature. Han thinks it's the brat who's been scratching his heel for the whole week. He thinks it is a tiny thing, quick as a flash. Realizing something, Han contemplates its small size and speed. He thinks if it's this thing instead of a human, he has a chance. He summons the aura to his index finger and internally thinks if he should give it a try. He then does something to the little rat in his mind, and the little rat screams in pain. A while later, it is completed. The rat stands up and its eyes turn red. Han thinks it's a success. As the rat leaves, Han encourages it to go. He even gives a name to the rat, Alfred. Han thinks that it's time to begin the Operation Night Watch, where nighttime conversations are overheard by the rat. The rat slowly moves, checking its surroundings. Jeffy, opening the door, says to just wait and see. He's going to make sure to deal with the old geezer. Han thinks this guy is always complaining. Han thinks about what's in the other warehouse and wonders if it's another undead. He considers whether he should follow him. A strange aura releases from the room. Han notices it and thinks, what's this? Even if he neutralizes his emotions with the mind hub, he can still instinctively feel it's dangerous to approach any closer. The man says, good job. Jeffy asks just when the ripening process will end. He says that whether it's the fragment of the immortal king or whatever it is, he feels like his lifespan is being sucked out whenever he goes near it. The man replies that it should be soon, as the master is stuck there every day. Jeffy then asks if it's not funny that they're guarding this side too, not only the village but also setting up traps in every building. Who will sneak in anyway? Han, hearing all this, internally thanks them for the useful information. He thinks that what he saw earlier must be the fragment of the immortal king. Han wonders where else he can gather information and where that village chief bastard could be. Suddenly, an attack comes and pierces through Alfred's body. Alfred's body sheds blood as the village chief slowly walks toward him. The village chief says he was wondering what it was, but it was just a rat. Han, frustratingly, thinks if he got caught observing Alfred. The village chief notes that it's an undead. He doesn't feel the energy of black magic, but its body is strangely filled with dark mana. He wonders if it turned into one naturally due to dark mana. The village chief states that there's only one place overflowing with dark mana here. He then asks if Jeffy was the one in charge of the warehouse today. Seeing the village chief, both of their faces pale, and they call him master. Han apologizes to Alfred, saying he'll make sure to take revenge on his behalf, and tells him to just watch over him. That morning, Jeffy kicks open the door. Jeffy says, who would have thought a rat would crawl out of there? What's the problem with one rat? He curses at the blasted old geezer. He angrily yells at the undead sticking out over there, and orders them to line up. Jeffy yells foolish things and beats the undead, saying, stand properly. The undead falls to the ground. He then grabs its hair and says, who do they have here? Isn't this the arrogant Jesse rebelled against me? Jeffy asks if he didn't say he wouldn't let him be if he messed with his family. Laughing, he tells him to repeat what he said back then. Jeffy says he remembers now, plucked out his tongue, and left the undead. He says it's no fun and adds that it was fun when they hunted down every single bastard in the village. The undead suddenly opens its eyes and stands up. Jeffy says he must still be happy because he's with his wife. He wonders if that is all, considering that other families have young children too. The undead reaches for Jeffy and tries to bite his neck, successfully sinking its teeth into him. Jeffy falls to the ground, exclaiming, what's wrong with it? All of a sudden he commands the undead to stop and screams, stop. Cursing, Jeffy tries to cast a spell at the undead, but suddenly another undead comes from behind and covers his mouth. His eyes widen at the situation as the other undead slowly walk towards him, surrounding him and attempting to bite him. Eventually they kill Jeffy. The one controlling them is Han, with fierce eyes filled with aura. Han declares that this is the beginning of the victim's revenge. Heinz tells them that his little brother is in the village. The guard replies that they didn't say they left not too long ago and questions what makes Heinz think they should let an outsider in so carelessly. Heinz responds that at the very least they should let him see the village chief. The village chief appears, asking what all the commotion is about and introducing himself as the chief. The two guards remain silent. Heinz greets the village chief, who is taken aback upon seeing him, and asks who he might be. Heinz explains that he thinks his twin sibling Hans is somewhere around here. Meanwhile, Han enters a basement room and thinks that having two bodies sure comes in handy at times like this. He notes that thanks to Heinz distracting the old man, he got in easily. Looking closely, Han realizes that it is the fragment of the immortal king. He can feel its overwhelming power and wonders if it's absorbing the dark energy from the undead around him. However, dismissing that thought, he figures it's more like resonating to fill in what's lacking rather than absorbing. Han observes that everyone here looks insanely strong, thinking that that the place he was in before was just a warehouse for rejects. He gets angry at the thought and grabs the fragment of the immortal king, reasoning that one shouldn't be picky with their meals. As he inserts it into his heart, he wonders how bad this junk food will taste. A surge of energy starts to surround Han and bursts into him. On the other side, Han chats with the village chief, laughing. He says that as they can see, they're twins, which means they can always tell where the other is. The village chief also laughs, saying that it's quite hard to believe. Suddenly, the village chief notices something wrong with the fragment and exclaims loudly. Quickly changing his demeanor, he orders the guards to kill Han. The guards turn to Han angrily, their spears aimed at him, ready to attack, but no one expects the wind. With blank faces, they ask, "Where is he?" Meanwhile, inside the basement, Han, who has merged the immortal king fragment into his body, hears a voice echoing in his mind, "Kill everyone. Shroud this land in despair. Hate all the living and kill them. The more the world is steeped in death, the stronger he will become." Han, holding his head, feels an overwhelming flood of negative emotions rushing in relentlessly. Even though they're being filtered by his mind hub, the intensity is unbearable. He wonders if anyone could withstand this without losing their sanity. Screaming loudly as the negative emotions intensify, a huge aura pours upon him. After the process is complete, the system notifies him that the entity has met the conditions and is evolving. Entity information: Immortal Mage Demonic. Notable information: its rank has increased due to the power of the fragment of the Immortal King. 1/3 of the dark magic latent within the fragment has assimilated with the entity. He has acquired the special skill, Evil Wisdom. Notable information: this grants absolute understanding and talent in dark magic. The man guarding the door sighs and curses, muttering that Jeffy couldn't even manage a zombie rat, and now he's got this mess to deal with. The village chief connects with the man through telepathy or sound transmission or whatever means and curses at him. The man replies that he understands but insists there's nothing wrong. The village chief tells him to stop talking nonsense and check the fragment first, then contact Jeffy. The man agrees, peering into the room from outside. He calls out to Jeffy, asking him to check the fragment quickly. Hearing no response, he asks again if Jeffy can hear him. At the time, someone was standing in front of the door, engulfed in aura. The man, seeing the figure, asks why he's not answering. Suddenly, the undead from the inside try to grab him, but since they're inside the room, they can't reach. Shocked, the man screams. Han, emerging from behind the group of undead, greets him, saying, "The weather's really nice today, isn't it?" The man, stunned, thinks to himself, "This can't be real. How is it even talking?" Preparing a spell in his hand, he throws it at the undead, shouting, "Get lost." But it has no effect. Instead, the undead force the door open and emerge from the room. Han, looking at the man, says, ignoring a greeting like that really hurts my feelings, you know. Han muses that he doesn't know if it's thanks to the evil wisdom or not, but just by observing the dark magic, he already understands how to use it. Then a massive blast occurs, likely caused by Han. Han commands the undead to come forth, ordering them not to let a single one escape and to kill every human in the village. As the undead rush and attack, Han silently watches. The skeletons, however, are easily taken down. One skeleton is thrown at Han's feet, leaving him taken aback. The village chief, having cleared the undead, says that it should have definitely become an elite skeleton. Releasing his aura in anger, he demands to know what Han did with the fragment of the immortal king. The village chief, the vow of defiance Elder Marcos Gali, demands answers. Han greets the village chief, saying it's been a while, and asks if he remembers him. Han adds that thanks to the chief, he lost his heart, so he picked up a new one from the warehouse. The village chief, furious, exclaims that Han fused the fragment of the immortal king with such a lowly body and yells for him to die in his rage. The village chief uses the finger of death, sending an aura rushing toward Han, striking his skeleton body and causing his left hand to fall to the ground. Han, unfazed, says, "Doesn't the old man know it's polite to wait and not attack while someone's talking?" The village chief shouts at Han to shut up, declaring that he has poured every resource he had for a year into the maturation process. He was so close to obtaining power stronger than anything, and angrily states that this isn't something that should end by merely turning an elite skeleton into a demole. The village chief then casts Thorn of Darkness. Seeing it, Han thinks, "Isn't that like putting a high-tier enchantment on a beginner's club shielding himself?" Han says, "So what? He's the only one who can make it work like this. There's no way he could." The village chief, unfazed, responds that he doesn't know how Han resisted the corrosion, but he'll break down his body and use it as a test subject. The village chief then casts Broken Ectoplasm. Han, blocking with his shield, complains, announcing the skill name at the end of every sentence is seriously annoying and yells, "Die already, Alfred's enemy." The village chief, hearing Alfred's name, asks if Han knows someone in the village, and if he infiltrated knowing all this from the start. As something dark approaches the village chief from behind, he quickly notices and uses his shield to block the attack from Han. The old man, realizing the situation, thinks to himself, that's not the important part. He's becoming abnormally accustomed to dark magic. He wonders if it's the power of the fragment and realizes he can't afford to waste any more time. The village chief then casts Pack of Destruction. Meanwhile, the village chief's lackeys are battling the undead. As two of them fight, one of the men suddenly feels something wrong and stops fighting. His companion, the man in the robe, asks what's happening. At that moment, a blue aura starts pouring out of the man's mouth. Seeing it, the man in the robe is shocked. Suddenly, the same thing happens to all of the village chief's lackeys. Watching this, Han thinks to himself, the souls of the dark mages are being drained away. The village chief casts Crown of the Broken, followed by Resting Place of the Dead. Han, enraged, asks if the village chief is amplifying his power at the cost of the dark mage's souls. The village chief angrily yells that Han might have endured well with the power of the fragment, but now he must die. He casts Flame of the Soul drenched in darkness. Han, unimpressed, attacks the village chief's heart with only a small amount of power, piercing through it and preventing him from casting any more spells. Han remarks, I almost fell asleep listening to the skill name. Let's just finish this. The village chief falls to his knees. Han comments that thanks to him, he's been learning dark magic really well. The village chief, gasping, says that to die like this feels so futile. Then he dies. Looking up at the sky, Han thinks if Alfred is watching, he has made sure to end the revenge. Rest in peace, he says. The rat shows a thumbs up somewhere. In a place resembling a castle, a woman is praying, kneeling before a god. Suddenly, she notices something and hurriedly opens the door, calling for Bishop Martin. Bishop Martin asks if she has finished her prayer, addressing her as Saint Rear. She confirms and asks if she can ask him to contact the others, informing him that a sign of the Immortal King's resurrection has been detected from the west. Bishop Martin is shocked to hear this and rushes off, saying he understands and will convene a meeting immediately. Saint Rear, thinking about the Immortal King, reflects on how his resurrection, the one who plunged the continent into fear hundreds of years ago, cannot be allowed to happen again. Looking up at the sky, she vows that she won't let such a catastrophe occur once more. Han says that the damage is significant. There were a few hundred undead, but they were almost all wiped out. Han states that if one's troops are reduced, they should just replenish them. The fun of being a necromancer is that one can use corpses to restore their troops. Han, looking at his broken hand, remains silent and says that he must take care of his arm first. He searches for the perfect arm among the undead corpses. He then breaks an arm from one of the undead, noting that it looks pretty good. Han uses activated super recovery to connect his new arm. Looking at it, he says, perfect. He then declares that they shall start replenishing their troops now. Han releases his aura, loudly stating that they become his subordinates. Internally, Han thinks about the wicked wisdom that whispers the way the fragment of the Immortal King lends their power, contaminating the remaining magic power in his body and scraping away the fragments of thoughts. As Han tries to create undead, it fails and the bones of the undead body break instead of reviving. He awkwardly looks at the broken bones and thinks it's not working. Han tries again and again, and is finally able to revive some undead. Looking at his undead army, he remarks that after doing it a few times, he is starting to get the hang of this. Han then turns his attention to the village chief's dead body and says it's his turn. Using his reviving power, he intends to turn him into an undead with a soul and try to extract information from him. However, as Han tries to revive the undead, he notices something amiss. Looking at the old man, Han realizes that this old man doesn't have a soul. Observing the formation in the old man's chest, Han concludes that it seems like his soul was artificially extracted through this magic circle. This must be some sort of security measure from a secret organization. Given the scale of their operation, it would be more surprising if they didn't have any precautions in place. Still, it doesn't matter, he can use the body. Han, once more using his reviving power, thinks about turning the old man into a top-tier undead with both self-awareness and strong fighting skills. He aims to contaminate the remaining magic power in the body, gather Malcolm's remaining thoughts, and implant his ego. With that, the revival successfully completes, and the old man awakens with burning eyes as an undead. His rank is Death Wizard. Bowing to Han, the old man states that he awaits his orders. Han places his hand on the old man's shoulder and enthusiastically remarks that not only does he possess self-awareness, but he also knows how to speak. Han declares that the old man's name is Malcolm, instructing him to obey his words. Han then playfully hits Malcolm on the face and demands that he answer him. Malcolm replies, yes. Han reflects that while Malcolm doesn't have any memories of his past life, it doesn't mean the crimes he committed have disappeared. Giggling to himself, he thinks he will continue to harass him from now on. Suddenly, Han calls out Malcolm's name. Malcolm responds, saying yes, and comments that the cane looks pretty nice. In response, Malcolm trembles in fear. Han stands in front of the undead skeletons and recalls that one of them is the young zombie who killed Jeffy alongside him. He places his hand hand on the young zombie's head and thinks, may he rest in eternal peace with his family. With that, Han incinerates all the undead skeletons, watching as they burn. Back at home, Han eats heartily and exclaims that he's full, noting that the food here is delicious. Checking his phone, he wonders about the current price of gold. He recalls that, since the place was occupied by warlocks, there was so much gold amassed. He thinks about taking a look at their loot, and then summons Hans. As Hans arrives in his apartment from the outer world, Han finds himself overwhelmed by Hans's terrifying aura. As Hans looks at Han, trembling and sweating heavily, quickly says, cancel the summon. As Hans returns to the outer world, Han catches his breath, breathing heavily. He exclaims that he thought he was going to die. Scratching his head, he ponders what to do next, realizing he needs to summon Hans again. He wonders if he should strengthen his unique skill first. Han then asks the system to open the karma shop. When it appears, he notices that he has earned much more than he expected. The last time he checked, he had a little over 400,000 karma, but now he owns 792, 836, 85. Han still felt fine even while standing next to Hans. Unlike Mindhub, it seemed that serenity could also be applied to his main body. It was strange how he always seemed to acquire the skills he needed. Once he finished organizing, he said, all good. Let's go sell the gold. Han went to a jewelry shop and placed all the gold and jewels in front of the buyers. The manager and workers were shocked, unable to withstand the brilliance of the gold. Han instructed them to deposit everything into his account. As he left, they bowed and thanked him for his patronage. Han waved his hand as he departed, encouraging them to keep up the good work. Han thought that in case of an emergency, he had hidden Hans in his shadow using dark magic. He even put a mask on him just in case he needed to summon him quickly. Smiling, Han reassured himself, thinking he was worried for nothing. As he relaxed for just a moment, suddenly a massive blast erupted from the store where he had handed over his gold and jewels. Startled, Han turned around to see a monster emerging from the destruction. A wolf-type monster exclaimed that they had hit the jackpot today. The monster collided with a human and attacked the store, bragging about finding so much gold in such a remote place. The masked man beside the wolf told him to save the bragging for later and to hurry up and escape. The wolf replied, I know. They both started to flee together, taking advantage of the wolf's agility. Someone from the crowd or shop seller screamed, it's villains. Report them villains. Those who commit crimes using their awakened powers. While there are guardians who protect citizens from such villains, they never arrive in time. That's how Han lost his legs before. The wolf punched Han in the face, telling him to get out of the way. His face swelled from the punch. Holding his bruised face, Han gritted his teeth, thinking that the guardians would probably track them down. Trembling, Han realized he couldn't do anything. The wolf, satisfied, remarked that everything was going according to plan. The masked man agreed, noting that they had plenty of time since it would take the guardians about 3 minutes to arrive. The wolf mentioned they just needed to reach the portal. Suddenly, the masked man noticed something and said, wait, isn't she right there? They found the girl unconscious on the ground. The wolf screamed the portal's name and, in a panic, tried to wake the girl, asking who had done this to her. At that moment, Hans emerged from the shadows. The masked man, noticing his presence, shouted for the wolf to look. Hans, radiating a fierce aura, slowly approached them. The wolf, startled, asked, who's there? And questioned if he was a guardian. The masked man quickly replied, that bastard isn't a guardian. Hans summoned an aura into his hands and thought, Seonghyeon Han may not be able to do anything, but I can. As Hans concentrated his aura, his undead army began to emerge. Seeing the undead, the wolf and the masked man, terrified, raised their hands in surrender. Hans, engulfed in aura, thought, Han may be powerless, but I'm different. The guardians arrived at the robbery scene and immediately began chasing in the direction of the fleeing thieves. The guardian leader shouted, they're over here. Move quickly. These were the South Korea Returners Association guardians. The leader, frustrated, asked his subordinates if they were going to lose the thieves again this time. Suddenly, he noticed something and was taken aback, seeing the thieves lying unconscious on the ground. The leader exclaimed, what's going on here? He realized that someone had fought the villains and disappeared. Judging by the scene, it hadn't been long, so that person must still be nearby. The thieves had just taken a beating from Hans and passed out. The leader quickly ordered his team. Everyone searched the area. What they didn't know, however, was that Hans hadn't gone anywhere. He was still there, concealed in the form of a shadow. Slowly and stealthily, Hans moved as a shadow and merged back with Han's shadow. Stretching his body, Han remarked that it was refreshing. As he walked back home, he mused that relieving stress like this from time to time might actually be a good idea. Han arrived in the outer world with Heinz's body. He enthusiastically looked at the town's entrance defense wall. The system notified Han Seonghyeon's second avatar, individual traits durability. Looking at the town, Han said that he was finally here. Laughing, Han recalled the old man's words, thinking, a town indeed. There's one if you go up east. Han said that Malcolm, that old geezer, wasn't lying after all. well. Giggling, Han entered the town, saying it's finally Heinz's debut in the other world. Han noticed the deserted town with no people on the roads. He wondered why the town was so empty, commenting that they don't even conduct checks or seem interested in foreigners. A group of thugs yelled at a little girl, accusing her of joking with them. Han, turning back, looked at the commotion. A bald man asked if he didn't already warn her. The girl, apologizing, asked for just a bit more time. The bald man told her to keep in mind that the two of them ought to pay them 2 silver coins in 3 days. If she doesn't bring it in 3 days, they'll have no choice but to act. Han thought, city thugs and an exploited young girl, what a tiring cliche. He decided it had nothing to do with him. The thug angrily pushed the girl, causing her to bump into Han. Bowing, she repeatedly apologized to Han coldly. Han calls out to the girl, asking if she knows the town well. Internally, he thinks that he does need a guide anyway. The girl, taken aback by the sudden question, addresses him as a Jesse and asks who he is. Han, showing some silver coins, says he's soon to be her employer. He asks if they should discuss the working conditions. The girl's eyes glow with interest at Han's offer. That night, the girl takes Han to an inn and says that this will be one of the better places for him to stay. She asks if he likes the inn. Han internally notes that the girl's name is Diana. She mentioned that she's been earning a little money to take care of her sick younger sibling after losing her parents. She also explained that she met him when she was in trouble for not being able to pay tribute money. Han tells her it's good and asks her to come to him once she wakes up tomorrow. Lying on the bed, Han thinks that she's going to become his guide every day for 2 silver coins. He tells himself, whatever, I'll just think of it as doing a good deed, even if I get ripped off. Let's sleep for now. After a few hours of sleep, Han wakes up and complains that the bed is so uncomfortable he can't rest. He hears noises, looks outside through the window, and notices something. Diana is sitting outside, sneezing constantly due to the cold weather. Seeing her, Han calls out to her. Diana, with a bright smile, says good morning to Han. Han yells, asking why she's waiting for him at dawn. Later, sitting in front of the food, Han yawns and tells her not to wait for him early in the morning anymore, and to come during lunchtime instead. Diana, happily eating, calls him a Jesse and agrees. Annoyed, Han reminds her that he told her he's not a Jesse. Diana asks if he's finished eating, and Han says he's done and tells her she can eat more if she's hungry. Diana stores the bread, thanking Han. This town's name is Ainu, a small town located on the western side of the Tia Kingdom. Han remarks that it may look like an ordinary medieval town, but there is this symbol written all over the city. Observing closely, Han says that it doesn't seem like paint. Diana reveals that it's blood. Surprised, Han asks if it's really blood. Admitting that he's not sure, Diana then calls out to Han, mentioning that yesterday he ate soup with venison in it, and asks if she's right. Taken aback, Han agrees and asks how she knew. Smiling, Diana says she has a good sense of smell. Han thinks how interesting her sense of smell is so sharp that he'd believe her if she called it a special ability. Han asks her about the symbol. Diana explains that it's the emblem of an organization called Via Rock, which oversees this road. As Diana is explaining, she suddenly stops walking and bumps into Han. Han remains silent as she bumps into him. Han then asks what's wrong. Diana mentions a smell. Curious, Han asks what she smelled this time. Clenching her fists, Diana says it's the scent of freshly baked bread, insisting that he must try it while in this town. Han is taken aback by her and his face blanks. Han says that she just ate moments ago. Diana responds that she can eat everything. Meanwhile, in the Windy Valley, someone gets murdered and pulled inside a house. A few days later, Han, waiting for Diana, says that she's never been late to their appointments and wonders if something happened. At that moment, someone calls out to Han. As he looks, it turns out to be those thugs. The bald man says they should talk. Han internally thinks, is the inevitable finally hear Han, handing over some silver coins, tells them to take these. Smiling brightly, Han says it's a small amount, but he hopes it helps with keeping public order. The man remarks that they could truly understand each other well. Han internally thinks that he brought the coins for times like these. Han notices the man has the same symbol as the one he saw on the walls. Han remembers Diana's warning not to even think about lurking in the back alleys, and that it would be better if he left the city as soon as possible. Han wonders how much they harassed her for her to be so afraid of them. One of the men asks the bald thug why Hyong Nim captured that little kid. The bald man responds that he doesn't know, they just do what they're told. Han thinks about the little kid they mentioned and wonders if these thugs got Diana. Loudly, Han shouts at them to wait. The thugs angrily turn back to look at him. Clenching his fist, Han internally thinks, screw it. In situations like this, momentum is important. If it gets dangerous, he'll just cancel the summon. Han then says that he's curious about something. Suddenly, Diana calls out to Han, calling him a Jesse. Han, taken aback with a pale face, turns back and calls out Diana's name. The two thugs, clenching their fists, glare at Han and ask what their bro here is curious about. With a pale face, Han looks back and says he was going to ask if the silver coins he gave them were enough or not. Lastly, Han respectfully adds, calling them sir. Han, holding his money pouch, angrily says that they took everything. He throws the pouch away in frustration and exclaims that Diana is late, way past their meeting time. He questions why she hasn't shown up and angrily asks if she knows how much money he's been trying to find her. Han furiously tells her that she has no food for today. Cheerfully, Diana explains that her little brother has disappeared. Crying and wiping her tears, she says that he had recently gotten healthy again because of the food Han had been providing, but now she can't find him anywhere. Han recalls the thug's words with the bald man who asked why they captured the little kid. Han starts thinking about the possibility that they were talking about Diana's brother. He asks if it was Vierok and considers the probability that they took her little brother. Han mentions that he overheard them talking about capturing a little kid. Diana's expression changes dramatically upon hearing his words. Holding her head, Diana starts crying harder. Concerned, Han tells her not to worry too much and reassures her that if they demand a ransom, he'll pay it for her. However, Diana, still in tears, says that if Vierok really took Eren, her brother will die. She explains that what they want is blood, not money. Han, taken aback by the mention of blood, asks why they need it. Diana reveals that this town is a food storage for vampires. Elsewhere, a mysterious figure remarks that the smell of dark mana is pungent. The figure is now in the same place where Han was before in the village. The mysterious person wonders if there is an internal conflict because of the fragment of the Immortal King. He expresses disappointment. He was planning to take the fragment once it had fully matured. The mysterious person is revealed to be a vampire. Smiling, the vampire admits that he doesn't know who got the head start, but he knows where they went. Confidently, the vampire says he'll catch them in no time. This vampire seems to be an enemy Han will have to face in the future for the sake of Diana and her brother.